What's going on, everyone? It's Adam here from No Shelf Space, and as you can see, I have the Witcher Old World set up on the table. Now, this is a little bit of a daunting game to get set up. There's tons of different cards. You've got to get all these different things out on the table, and it's a bit overwhelming, I think, for your very first game, especially if you are into video games. You're into the Witcher video game, and you're like, wow, there's a board game of the Witcher. I want to give it a try. Give it a try, for sure. But there's a lot going on. But this brings me to something. Games that are very, very, very intensive really need a fantastic rule book. And I've been thinking about doing a video for a little while about good rule books. And honestly, The Witcher Old World is such a great example of a good rule book for a game that might feel really daunting. There's a lot going on, and as you can see from the video here, there are different decks, there's different cards being laid out, there's location tiles, there's event decks, scripted events, you've got wild events, you've got city events, you've got monster cards and monster tokens, and you've got location tokens with monsters on them, and you've got monsters on the board, and everybody's going to be picking a player card, a Witcher to play as, and there's money to buy stuff, and of course there are poker dice. There's a lot going on, and I was really worried. And when I first opened up this rule book and just saw all the text, I was like, oh no, this is going to be a disaster. That is not the case. They are doing a lot of great things with this rule book, and I just want to pinpoint a few things that are good in a rule book. First things first, I always like a little bit of an introduction to a game, especially a game that's based on another IP. Not another IP, but is based on an IP. So obviously this is based on The Witcher, so it's nice to get that introduction. A really great components page is really important, and a great components page that highlights the different card backs. That makes setting up so much easier. They're big, they're vibrant. It's easy to see, so getting these all set up was a piece of cake. Yes, there's a lot of cards, and you got to sort them all and shuffle them all, especially for that first game, but man, oh man, a good component page is amazing. And instead of trying to squish this all into one, I'm happy that they used two. The next thing I like to see is numbered setup. And again, The Witcher's doing that. They have the numbered setup here. Everything's numbered 1, 2, 3, 4. And then where appropriate, the numbers are actually showing up in the rule book. So you can see the various little numbers there, including multi-steps. You'll see like 8.5, 8.3, 8.7 on the page here. And that corresponds to just all this information. Again, makes setting up a game that might feel daunting so incredibly easy. Now, I love when they just kind of lay it out. I've never seen this before in a rule book, but some give like a quick overview. I love an overview page. This one literally gives you how to use this rule book with all the information. It tells you where basic turns, player turns, fights. That's amazing. That's like your own little quick table of contents, so you can jump around and figure out where you need to go. Now, explaining cards is probably the first thing you should always do in any game, and in The Witcher, they do that here. They explain all the terminology, all the colors, all the symbols, everything like that. They talk about all the various aspects of the game that you're going to have to know about. So they talk about the cards that you'll eventually put in your hand. They talk about the different attributes on your player board. They talk about leveling up. They talk about location tiles right here. They talk about potions down here. And that's all before they even get into the player phases. And the reason why that's so important is now they can use all those terms while explaining how to play. And you're like, I know what those terms mean because I've read them. Games that break the game down into phases are amazing because in your mind, it's easier to understand. It's easier to wrap your mind around. All right, there are 3 phases in this game. There's a movement and action phase. There's a fight, meditate, or explore phase. And there's a draw and gain cards phase. And that each phase is laid out. Phase 1, phase 2, and then of course phase 3. And what I love about using phases is that if I ever have a question about something that's happening in a specific phase, I can easily just go find the big phase thing on the page and move there. What I like about this game really quick is they actually label the phases on the board. So here we go. Phase 1 is your move and action phase, where you're going to be doing stuff right here. Phase 2 is going to be fighting monsters, fighting other witchers, which is highlighted right here at the monster deck, and doing events. And then phase 3, right up here, this one here is all about drawing cards and getting ready for the next turn. So I love that they do that. It corresponds really nice to the book. Amazing. Good job. I also like that they use examples throughout and use these highlighted notes so that you know that, hey, that's an important piece of information. For example, once you choose one of these options, you may not go back to move or perform any other actions this turn. That's important. That's important because this is phase 1 stuff. So what they're telling you is the second you choose one of these options, you can no longer move around the board. That's done. That's over. Just highlighting those important things that these are the things that you forget about while you're playing games. So to see them highlighted is great. And then finally, I love examples. Most rule books now are using examples, but I love just examples of what you can expect at certain points in the game. All right, I'm not going to explain this whole game. That's not the point. A couple other things I like to see in a rule book, and we're going to get here to near the end. This is amazing. Now, this is maybe only helpful in this situation for a 2-player game, but this is like a legitimate run-through of a full turn for 2 players. How awesome is that? How awesome is this? This just, like, if you're trying to, and the reason why I like this so much is because if you're trying to figure out how a game works, even if you're just reading the rule book before friends come over or whoever's coming over to play the game, how awesome is it to just be able to walk through an entire turn and kind of get a feel for what's going to happen before it actually happens. I think this is cool. Some games are doing this now, but not most. And you know, I'd love to see that more often in heavier games. Then the last thing I love to see is always a glossary of important terms. Now, I've played games that lack a glossary. And, you know, when you're trying to look something up or figure something out, it's not always so easy to go figure out where that is. But it's highlighting specific words. It's highlighting specific symbols and what they mean. And I think having that is really, really good. So, you know what? Hats off to the team behind The Witcher Old World, because I was feeling a little overwhelmed. Even when I looked at some videos online of all the components, and things get even crazier, right? You got to remember, this is just the retail version of the game. There are deluxe versions. There's about 17,000 expansions for this game. Hopefully we'll be reviewing those as well. But just for the base game, this is a well-written rule book. And honestly, it's going to make playing this game so much more enjoyable. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please hit that like button and subscribe. But until next time, we'll chat again soon. Goodbye.